I'm guessing that Rocky Horror has been a part of your life in different sort of shapes and forms for a long time. But I wonder at what kind of age and when you can remember really experiencing Rocky Horror yourself. Was it through your dad or was it through other people? How did you come to engage with it?
Well, my first memories is of seeing it at the King's Road Theatre when I was 4 or 5. They let me sit up in the balcony, and they let me have this switch that controlled the lights around the proscenium. So I was really focused on that. I wasn't really focused on what else was going on. So yeah, I was flicking that switch, and that's my first memory. And then it was just in and out of my life over the years after that, anniversaries, conventions, and new stage productions.
And did you have the same kind of appreciation as well in terms of, like, was it different because of your relationships with your dad, or did you engage with it as a piece of work in its own right as well?
A little bit, but it was more really about 3.5 years ago when I saw the clips, the comments underneath the YouTube clip of I'm Going Home, that it really struck home the deep impact that Rocky has had on 3 generations and millions of fans around the world. And so I was like, we really need to celebrate the fans who've put so much into it. And really that was the impetus for the whole thing.
And I wonder, just to start off with, I'd like to start with you, Belinda. Perhaps you could just talk us a little bit about your relationship with the show in terms of, obviously 50 years is a long time.
Yes.
Since
what happened? I remember.
And obviously, you've done a lot of other work both before and besides, but this obviously is one of the things that keeps coming back, and I guess you have to talk about a lot.
Yes.
But what is it about the show that you think makes it so special? What is it about that kind of connection?
Well, it gives everybody the freedom to be who they are. That's really all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who sees it, everybody who was in it, I was greatly changed, I think, from it. I think it's probably changed my life without me even realizing it.
I mean, could you ever have dreamt back in the day that it was still going to be with us now? Could
Not
you
at all.
recognise that potential?
Not at all. I thought it was going to be just one other job and it would be over in, a couple of months and I'd move on to something else. And it just didn't happen that way. I went to Japan with it. My God, you think we have fans here and in America? I had little Japanese girls sleeping outside my hotel room just to get a glimpse of me, and giving me kimonos they had made themselves with pictures of Frank on the front, and I thought, I don't know if I want to wear that, really. They were fantastic, little sewing kits they'd made themselves.
Do you still have any keepsakes from the time?
I have it all.
Have you?
I have kept
Amazing.
it all. I obviously have grown kids now, and they have never seen it. In fact, my daughter was going to come with me tonight, but she had a baby 3 weeks ago, and so she wasn't really up for it. Yes, I've forgiven her. But I only joined the show because I had worked with Richard in Hair.
Right.
We were in Hair together, and so I already knew him. I was there when he was talking about it. I was there when he was singing the songs occasionally with us and in the evenings. And I never dreamt that I was going to audition for it. But I auditioned for Jim. The only other person that auditioned with me was Elaine Page, actually.
And she's still furious.
And she's still furious.
I said, well, he did very well, Ellie. Yeah.
No, she's done pretty well. But I think I was the more naive of the two of us, and I think that's what Jim was looking for.
And Richard, were you and Richard both working in the same space?
Yeah, I mean, Richard just... actually, Linus was there when he was 3 months old, actually, because he was there the night when he sang.
That's why I remember that.
Yeah, no, Richard would... there were quite a lot of songs, and I just sort of knocked them together, arranged them, and because, the rehearsal was like 3 weeks, so there was, we didn't have an intro, so I'd just teach the songs to the cast.
That's a very tiny amount of time, isn't it?
And then we'd have to have an intro, and then we have to finish the song, and then they have to do a vocal arrangement. It was all done on the fly.
Wow.
Except for, and then songs were put in, as in the film. There was, actually, I think it was Nell who said, look, this is a musical, and there's no dance routine. And so Richard went home, and he came around to my flat the next morning, and he got to, but anyway, technically it's an A, and blah, blah, anyway, he got to B, and then he said, I'm going to this chord F, and then we've got to get back to A, so I just said, F, C, G, D, and that was it. And then, so I wrote it out, and then he went to rehearsals, and that was that. And Touch Me, the same thing. Because that Shangri-La's beginning, because
Yeah.
the thing is, Richard and I were brought up listening to the same songs. So there was a shorthand, and so we'd say, well, a bit of Bobby V here, a bit of Rose, but, and that was, but there was no time to think. And Jimmy was right, that I think he just picked the right team, right? We had the right cast and the right people working on it, and it just all seemed to fall together, really.
And Sue, I wonder, obviously, everything came together on this production, in terms of the script and the music, but, the look of the show, both theatre and film, completely lives on today. And often, if you were going to see this in the theatre, you would have people dressed up in a sort of homage to the kind of costumes that they see on stage or they've seen already. And obviously, you're trying to create a sort of a science fiction element at the same time as creating something that's sort of set in the present day. And I wonder how, if you can remember how your process and how involved Richard was as part of that as well. I guess there must have been some stage directions and some bits and pieces that he was helping you working on you with, but I wonder.
My same thing as Richard was just saying. It was so fast. We had so little time to prepare it, and really almost no money whatsoever. I think the original budget for the show was 200 quid. I got paid 50 quid, which was not too bad in 1973, I suppose, which I shared with somebody so that I'd got some help to help put it together, who was a wonderful man who's sadly no longer with us, Colin McNeil, who came down from Glasgow, where I'd been working with Tim, in fact, and Patricia Quinn was up at Glasgow as well, and it was a big connection to coming down to the Royal Court because Harriet Cruikshank ran the Royal Court Theatre upstairs, and so she brought in a lot of help from the Citizens Theatre in Glasgow. So it was a case of just hurl it all together, really, to be quite honest, both imaginatively, I think, which came from all sorts of different sources in my case, an awful lot from wonderful sort of glamour tragedy at the Citizens Theatre by Philip Prowse, and also did a show with Lindsay Kemp, who some of you might remember.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that the fashion and costume are both very different things.
Totally.
But the fashion out of the costume is actually quite a big thing, isn't it? And subsequently from audiences.
Yes,
and so
I
forth.
think so. I took a lot of inspiration, as I say, from earlier productions and other people's design. However, the whole sort of issue of punk was around at the time, and it was very much emerging on the streets, particularly around Chelsea.
Yeah.
And I just really drew on that a little bit. And I think I probably added the imagery of having everything very broken down, i.e. very tatty, and the ripped stockings and fishnets and all the rest of it. But in terms of interaction, I mean, we all interacted.
Yeah.
We had to.
Yeah.
Because
And it was in the script. I mean, the thing
We
was,
all added bits to it as we were rehearsing.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
But there
I wrote
wasn't-
several lines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
there wasn't actually much of a script when I joined.
Yeah.
It was a bit of an explanation.
Yeah.
And I do remember going around to Jim Sharman's flat in Pimlico, actually, and sitting on the bed while Richard, with his guitar, I think
That's
you
right.
might have been there, mightn't you?
Yeah,
Certainly Brian Thompson was.
Yeah.
Sitting, sort of trying to explain through it to us and play some of the songs.
Yeah.
And there was a sort of synopsis, but there wasn't really
No, there wasn't a
an
great deal.
actual script.
No.
And Linus, I wonder if we could talk about the fact, obviously, a lot of the guys involved in the different incarnations of Rocky Horror have talked about it, obviously probably exhaustively in some cases over the years. They've gone on to have other careers where sometimes I think Rocky Horror has probably eclipsed their other careers.
Sure.
And I wonder how difficult it was to persuade them to come back again and kind of regroup on camera, not obviously regroup together, but
Right.
to talk about their memories and recollections?
It was surprisingly easy. Everyone was very, very gracious with their time, and it was great to reconnect with a lot of people who I knew in my early childhood but hadn't seen in 40 plus years. So yeah, there was no issues at all. I had a little bit of scheduling issues with Tim, but other than that, it was all very smooth and great to reconnect with everyone.
And do you think part of that is because of that personal relationship you've got and through your dad, they would trust you with the story?
Yeah, I think yeah, to a degree for sure. Yeah, it definitely helped.
And how, I mean, bearing in mind, I'm guessing you probably must have shot a lot of footage. How difficult was it to get it down to the sort of hour and a half that we see?
Well, that was the trick of it all, really, because we wanted to give ourselves 90 minutes, but we wanted to do the origin story of Rocky, then my dad's personal journey, and then the midnight screenings, and then the effect on the LGBTQ community, and then sum it all up. So to give everything its time and space and not feel like we were shortchanging anyone, but also feeling like maybe people would want a little bit more in certain areas. That was the whole trick of it. And so together with my creative partner, Abner Shiloah, I think we managed to do it. We edited it in 2 months, and it just went very, very quickly.
And I was saying in the introduction, and we've already touched on it to an extent, that this is a show that has completely touched people in a really kind of, I think it's spoken to people kind of globally, really, really deeply, and they have a real sort of sense of kind of relationship, I guess, with the material.
Well, you're quite right, because I think really Rocky, at the end of the day, its legacy and what it boils down to is really community and connection. I think us as human beings, those are the two things that we're looking for. And so for Rocky to be able to provide that to people who are on the fringes of society and feel vulnerable, it's a tremendous privilege to really be a small part of that and support that. And Rocky, at the end of the day, is going to outlive us all. People will still be performing it and playing it long after we're all dead, basically. And I think that's an amazing thing to think about.
And I guess the other thing is that it's a show that, in a way, was kind of inspired or born out of a love for kind of like science fiction films, B-movies and stuff. But actually, it's kind of come full circle in terms of the cultural references. Like Sabrina Carpenter most recently took inspiration from the film. So it comes full circle, and each new generation kind of reinvents the story, if you like.
Yeah, people find it all the time. I mean, there were two really interesting interactions. There's a gentleman who, at our world premiere at South by Southwest, we had a gentleman come to the front of the stage, and he was shaking. And he said, my wife and I met at Rocky 32 years ago, and she wanted me to tell you and your dad that if it wasn't for Rocky, she wouldn't be alive today. And then someone else, I was at an RKO convention recently, and there was a girl who was like 17, and she was like, oh, if it wasn't for Rocky, I might have hurt myself or something. So we're hearing those stories on a daily basis through social media or in person, and Rocky takes on a whole new meaning with that kind of stuff, and it becomes quite overwhelming when you actually dwell on it. But I think a case could be made that Rocky has probably saved hundreds of thousands of lives, over the last 50 years, and I can't think of another work of art, an album, a film, a musical, which can say the same. So it's the word unique gets thrown around a lot, but it definitely is. I mean, they did a remake for TV, which I haven't seen, and I haven't seen the Glee episode either. So it's just like what people do with it now is out of our hands to a degree. It probably shouldn't be remade. You're never going to quite reach that level at all. The answer is no.
No.
I mean, the only person that I wanted that we didn't get was Quentin Tarantino, because he talks about it in his book, Cinema Speculation. And then he walked up to my sister, or they passed in passing at a party, and he leant into her and says, I know all the lyrics for science fiction double feature, and then disappeared. And I was like, well, I want to get that on film at least. But it didn't happen, sadly.
Who doesn't know the lyrics?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's true. Well, I had the idea in May of 2022, and then we started the first filming in November when we went down to New Zealand. So it's been roughly 3 years of shooting and 3.5 years since I had the idea. It would have been probably quicker, but we were trying to gather money. But then it also worked out very good timing with the release coinciding with the 50th anniversary of the film.
To be quite honest, if you make a film, then you would rather hope that it would remain the same. The show's quite a different matter, and also the fact that people still dress up for the show, certainly here in the UK, I'm pretty sure they do elsewhere as well, probably, quite a lot. I don't get to see it so much now, I'm a bit disabled, as you could see when I walked on, but actually I get reports back, and it's still extraordinary to see and gives me enormous pleasure sometimes and horrifying feelings at others. But the detail and the devotion that some of the fans show to dressing up as the characters is fantastic. My favourite one was in Birmingham, actually, a few years back now, where there was this, I can only describe, white, straight, probably a solicitor type. You know, the most sort of normal chap you could imagine. And he was sat in front of me and he stood up in the middle of the show wearing a pair of Y-fronts that he'd sprayed with a gold spray and some trainers that he'd sprayed gold. I mean, it was extraordinary. I thought, how can you do that in Birmingham? How did he get into the theatre? I mean, you know, it's a lot nicer than it used to be, Birmingham, I tell you, I came from there. But actually, it's still a tough city. Yes.
You know, we at the Isolde Theatre, when we opened there, we had 2 dressing rooms, male and female, but we were always mixed up. And our first night there, we had Claire Bloom, Mick Jagger, David Bowie and his wife, and Angie Bowie. I mean, the whole audience, and they came round, and they just walked into the dressing room, and we were all half naked, because we were naked, half naked on stage. And then we came back, and we were getting dressed, but they didn't wait. They just came in, they were throwing their arms around us. I had David Bowie and Mick Jagger giving me huge hugs and saying how much they loved it. And Claire Bloom, who's a very quiet sort of elegant lady, was like going crazy. She was like, and you go, oh, all right, fine. You know, it was shocking. It was really quite shocking, but so lovely, so lovely.
And Sue, you had someone you were going to mention?
I was going to mention it was very recently with another event that was to do with Rocky anniversary, and Professor Brian Cox came to be introduced to me. He was very witty. He said, "I'm Brian Cox. I'm not the actor Brian Cox." I said, "I know you're not. I can tell the difference." All right, that just can. I mean, I'm feeling shaky now just thinking about it.
I mean, I just like it to continue the way it has been. It grows very naturally in a very open way. I think that one of the great things about Rocky is that there's no judgment, no shame in the theatre or in the cinema that you go into. It's a very welcoming, open place, and I just hope that continues, because obviously in today's day and age, it's becoming a little bit more conservative, which is a shame. But then Rocky has the ability to kind of fight against that to a degree. So I would just hope that it just remains a place where people can come together and be free to be who they want to be, basically.
Exactly.
Great. So, I'd like to say say the film is getting a UK release. Is there a date?
Yeah, it's next this Friday.
This Friday
yeah,
coming?
Yeah, October
Okay, so
3rd.
not long to wait at all.
Yeah.
Sadly, they won't have the opportunity of our panel here. Big thank you to all of you for being here today. Thank you so much.